Liquorland are proud partners of the DeeBrief for another season of footy. Pop into your local Liquorland today or shop online to pick up all your favourites in time for the game. Would you like the chance to win a share of 20 million Flybuys points? To enter the draw, just spend $20 on liquor at your local Liquorland from March 1st until the 11th of April 2023. In-store or online, and don't forget to scan your Flybuys. Every $20 you spend will put you in the running to win one of 3,000 prizes. So get shopping and scanning today and land a share of 20 million Flybuy points with Liquorland. Liquorland, from the land you love. Please, as always, drink responsibly. The Dees prepare for a trip west to take on a Winged Eagles as Cozzy makes his big return, and we all ponder, will Goody send Harrison Petty forward or bring him back? Welcome to the official, unofficial podcast of the Melbourne Demons, the DeeBrief. I'm your host, Adrian Horton, on a Thursday, a quiet Thursday. No Tom Marquezani, no Matt Adams, but we've brought in the big kahuna, the YouTube sensation, Caden MacDonald. Welcome.
Naughtsie, thanks for having me, mate.
And a massive Demons nuffie.
Absolutely a massive Demons nuffie. I've heard that intro so much in my AirPods when I'm wandering the streets, so to see it live in the flesh was an absolute occasion.
And can we just clarify for all the listeners and even the viewers out there, because we're on YouTube and I think we're 77,300 just behind you. So we've got a little bit of a way to go in terms of subs, but that was a one take.
That was a one take. I don't think I've ever done a one take in my career. Editing usually saves me, but I'm pumped to be here and I can't wait to talk about the Dees.
Mate, absolutely. It was a great performance last week. I was just so bloody happy being at the G last week, reveling in a victory against a side that have had the woodiness for a long time. It looked a little bit nervy in the third and they got it back to a goal. But to see Melbourne pull away in the fashion that they did, I brought it up on the Monday review show with the boys. Again, just the most pleasing aspect of it for me, and probably the same for you.
Yeah, it was emphatic. It was really satisfying. Like, I don't think we've had a satisfying victory like that for ages. Maybe, oh Jesus, a couple of the finals in 2021 were pretty satisfying. But like a home and away game where we sort of sit back and go, we played 4 quarters. Maybe the Gold Coast game in 21. It's been a while since we've played that emphatically. I might out myself a little bit. I had for exaggeration purposes, I had a million beers on Saturday night and I woke up Sunday quite dusty and I had a bit of anxiety and I just started thinking about what the Swans did to us in the finals the year before and how strong they've looked in the first couple of rounds. And through my anxiousness and stress, I messaged you and said, look, to be honest, I'm a little bit worried that we might not get it done today. And this is the first time in sort of 2 or 3 years that I'm walking to the game and I'm sort of expecting to lose. And I've sort of accepted the fact that we're probably going to get done this week. So I sent that message to you and you steadied the ship. You sent something that was...
don't do this.
That was quite... It put me on a better path walking across Yarra Park because I was quite worried and you did steady the ship.
Okay, well, I like that. I to be fair, I think the only reason why I was exuding calmness was because I had a very quiet weekend in. I actually went for a 10K before the game, so I was fresh.
Two different circumstances walking into the MCC.
So I was fresh. I was fit as a fiddle. I was ready to go. You were feeling a bit sorry for yourself, but maybe I'll even dig it up. So you have hit me up and you've said first time in 3 years I'm going to a sort of game expecting to lose. Not super pessimistic. We'll give a good account of ourselves.
Yeah.
And then you went on a little bit and said, in saying that, we'll be elite if we get it done, genuinely against the odds, blah, blah, blah. I never thought it was against the odds, but this is what I said back to you. I said Track was injured relatively early in that quali final.
Yep.
So hopefully that doesn't happen again because he couldn't influence the game.
No, he couldn't.
After that point. And then I said Buddy was an embarrassment because he was. He was an embarrassment in the quali final. And I thought that had a huge influence on the contest as well. It swung the momentum when we were playing them in that recent encounter. And then I said Harms gave away the dumbest free kick at the start of the last quarter, 50 metres, snuffed out any momentum we could get. And then the stat that really threw me, and I can't believe I remembered this, probably because I'd been for a jog, was Sydney had 14 tackles inside 50 in that last quarter against us in the qualifying final. So, again, it was more just like, that's not going to happen.
Yep.
So it was all of these things culminating. But when I sent that and I read it back to you, I thought to myself, I'm kidding myself. Because, and this is why I don't want to self-indulge and give myself any kudos. I was bricking it before the Sydney game. I couldn't shake this terrible fear that they would go on and do what they've always done against us.
I had that same thought, and I remember, you go back to the Paul Roos days, and he said we have to sort of get, like, the Melbourne Football Club supporters have this doubt. Every time we go into a game, we're glass half empty, and I remember shedding that through 2021. I remember getting to, like, 9-0 and going, we're going to fall off the wagon. And then we play the Cats, and it's the last game of the season, and they start flogging us. And I go, there it is. This is what I'm looking for, this negativity, this loser mentality. And we sort of exercised those demons throughout that year. And I didn't have that through 2022. Like, I went into both finals after we beat Brisbane. We had a bit of a shaky run towards the end of the year, and I was still really confident. So I sort of had this sort of pre-2021 feeling walking into the G on Sunday, and for them to sort of perform the way they did against the way Sydney played, they're a quality outfit. Like, it's not like they lowered their colours. They played pretty good. They still scored like 84 points. Yep. But we just were stronger and better, and it's just sort of filled me. It's still early days, but it filled me with like a lot of confidence going throughout the season. Just that one performance.
I couldn't agree more. And just on the score that Melbourne actually had in that game, 134 points. Sydney haven't conceded a score against Melbourne that big, and it's the third since 2015 rather, and it's the third biggest score under John Longmire that they've conceded since 2011. So it's a whopping score against what I would consider to be a very resilient, defensively turgid team. Like, they don't give you an inch, but Melbourne were very good in defensive transition. There's a few stats that I'm going to reel off later in this potty, but I just felt like when it was close and it was tough, Melbourne did a really good job to arrest momentum, and I know Goody speaks about this a lot in his press conferences. But
they've been speaking about arresting momentum for about 4 years now, before momentum was a significant trend in the AFL.
Yeah, and I think it was evident on Sunday. Like, Melbourne did an awesome job to just get it back on our terms, and I said it on Monday. It just reiterated to me that I think the team's fit and firing again. Their confidence is back. It certainly took a hit in 2022 and the way that we exited finals. We had a crack in finals, there's no doubt. We put up a bit of a fight, but I think you hear things about Lever and how he's playing through a stress fracture in his foot. And then you hear things about Gawn and how he was crooked in the final series, along with Petrarca, who's playing with a bloody, broken bone. Yeah. Fritter in the warm-up as well. So all these stories start coming out, and you start to realise that, and we've said it, why didn't we reward players at Casey level when our team was so imperious last season, effectively didn't lose a game? You could almost say that they were kind of resting on their laurels in the last game of the season that they lost, and then went on to win the granny, obviously. So I think we are seeing a Melbourne side that's reminiscent of the 2021 version, and it's bloody exciting. I just think as Melbourne supporters, we needed a reminder.
We did, yeah.
And the reminder was Sunday.
Yeah, we did need that reminder. Just across the board, how emphatic it was. That brutality looks back. Like, we sort of got bashed around towards the end of last season by teams that were still sort of treating us as the team to beat and the team to chase. So in that back half of 2022, we had teams playing out of their skin just because they were coming up against Melbourne. It feels like we've got the hunt back, and some of the efforts on the weekend, it did remind me of that brutality of the 2021 Dees.
Absolutely, and I'll talk about your vlogging and your YouTubing.
Oh boy!
on the weekend, I had a look at your vlog, a very special one because, of course, it was Jacob Van Rooyen's first game for the Melbourne Football Club and Clary's 150th. So it was great to see it, mate. It one thing I spoke about when we walked into the studio before was just the Melbourne supporters as well. It feels like we're back. It feels like we've got some fire in the belly. The atmosphere on Sunday was fantastic. Melbourne supporters are just almost taking a leaf out of the Collingwood book and baying for free kicks that weren't there. It just is a real good feel-good factor to the game. But I think given the fact that it was Clary's 150, given the fact it was JVR's debut, like I think that all culminated in terms of the atmosphere. I thought it was a great day out. And to have 43,000 there, considering that the Grand Prix was on, I thought was a great result. It was one of my favourite days at the footy in a long, long time.
I agree, and I was thinking on the way there because I was getting prepared on the Sunday, getting ready to trundle in, and I started to think like maybe 3:20, ironically, is our time slot. Like maybe some of our members don't want to rock up to the Thursday night match because they've got kids, or some of the older folk don't want to go to the Saturday night match. And I remember when we were a salad dweller team, I despised the 3:20 time slot. I was so embarrassed by it, or like the 110s. Like, oh, why can't we play?
What about the 440s?
The 440s back in the day against like Adelaide, and we were goalless till 3/4 time or whatever.
Imagine being the AFL back in the day when they're trying to organise the fixture and they're just sitting there and they're going, Sunday 4:40. Let's throw Melbourne in for 13 of them.
Yeah.
Like, honestly.
Exactly. So I remember being quite ashamed of like the 3:20 clash, and all I wanted was the blockbusters. And now, the grass is always greener, but now that we are sort of playing the Fridays and the Saturday nights, there was something so special about the 3:20 match, and knowing that, usually it's a one-off game. Like, there's not often that the 3:20 coincides with another contest. I think it did with 2 on the weekend. But usually, the 6 o'clock Freo game's on and the 1:10 on the Sunday. So it usually gets its own time slot. So it did feel like, I don't know, really nostalgic and like a great time slot to play footy. And then, Clary's 150th. He's one of the best footballers I've ever seen grace the turf. Van Rooyen on debut didn't disappoint. We had a bit of adversity in the third term. When they got within a goal, I started to think, oh, geez, it's happening again. I think you boys mentioned that on Monday, but the way we responded and kicked clear and that firepower is stronger than 2021. I don't want to sort of go making headlines and claims just yet, but that forward line looks 2 or 3 times stronger than what we had a couple of years ago. So it's quite exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. It's been a great start. I think a lot of us were hoping that it would be at minimum a 2-1 start, and that's what it's become, because we played 3 finalists, 3 very decent outfits in the Western Bulldogs, Brisbane, and of course Sydney last week. So you take the 2-1, you bank it. There's some really kind looking fixtures on the horizon. But, footy's not played on paper. It's played on grass. So you got to respect your opponents. But it's such a good opportunity for Melbourne to set their season up. And it's also another really good opportunity. I'll move on to Cozzy Pickett and Byron, who's come into
working some magic.
The fray as well. And we love Byron. And it was great when he had his little stint at the Dees. And I remember just being at school and kind of idolising him when he was at North Melbourne, if I'm being brutally honest. I think, back end of his career at Melbourne, he was pretty big, he was pretty large, but he was fun to watch, and he always put his body on the line. And at North and Port Adelaide, he was such an exciting player, and he won a Norm Smith in 2004, if my memory serves me correct. So to have him involved talking to Keziah about staying at Melbourne seems like a pretty shrewd move to me, although from what I hear, we shouldn't be too concerned. We shouldn't be too stressed. It's likely that it will get done at some point. And as we know, Kados, we've probably learned a lot as footy fans. Like, these managers, they love trying to string it out for as long as they can. They want to get the biggest payday. So if Cozzy Pickett continues his form, and some stats I'm going to reel off later, which are wild about him as well. If he continues to do what he's doing and he becomes the player we all think he will be and one of the best in the competition, it might even be this year that he puts an extra 100, 150K on his pay packet which obviously is nice if you're the manager of him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, true.
I'm not concerned. I can see it just taking a little bit more time. But in saying that, having Byron involved as someone close to him, as his uncle, to try and nurture him, try and explain to him it's a great decision to stay with the football club, not a bad idea, I would have thought.
Yeah, I agree. Geez, Cozzy Pickett, he's probably, one of the better, most exciting talents we've ever had. He could be anything. I love the move of putting him in the midfield. I remember sort of last year, our midfield got quite stagnant, and it sounds sort of silly saying that because of how powerful our midfield is, but there was times last year it was the same four in the midfield the whole time, and I'd watch Geelong, and they'd just be chucking every man and their dog in there. Sometimes the Blitz would play a bit of midfield. Sometimes like a Brad Close would float through, and Holmes off the wing, and everyone sort of got a lick of the ice cream. And I used to think like, geez, I want to rotate more through. I want to be unpredictable, and I like that they've put Cozzy, Trent Rivers. I like that James Jordan sort of floats in and out. It gives us a completely different look. So yeah, Cozzy Pickett, he is an absolute superstar, and he will be like one of our better small forwards. Like what he's done to this point in his career is sort of parallel with some of the best small forwards ever. And I think, like, from a general standpoint, he gets sort of tall poppy syndromed a little bit by other AFL fans. Like, in his first couple of games, he got the Cyril comparisons.
Yeah.
And there's no surprise why. Like, the movement, the creativity, the pace, the brutality. He loves to pump, he loves to tackle. It's no surprise why he got those comparisons. But now if you see any sort of Fox Footy post on Cozzy, it's sort of like the top comments are sort of bringing him down. I know that Melbourne fans appreciate him for what he is. He is a borderline generational talent, one of a kind. I don't think, we've seen someone like that at our club since, Aaron Davey, going back that far. So he is an absolute asset that we'd love to sign. But what I do want to say is I've come to terms with the modern AFL business, and I've been watching a little bit of American sports, and I know we don't want to copy exactly what everything that they do overseas, but I heard I've been watching a little bit of ice hockey recently, and I heard a manager from an ice hockey team, and he was saying, my job is to either draft prospects that'll play for our club or draft prospects that will warrant value when they leave. So I started to open my mind to this, like, football as a business, and I think it's just brilliant what our footy club's done. Like, maybe Luke Jackson was always going to go home, but getting him for 2 or 3 years got us Grundy, and maybe they didn't think that, potentially we all wanted Luke Jackson to play 200 games for the D's, but potentially taking that risk of getting him for 3 years, it got us Grundy. So I think no matter what happens, I've got a peace of mind that Tim Lamb and the footy club will do something with it. So I think having Cozzy for 3 or 4 years, if that is the case, hopefully he does stay, we'll turn that into something really valuable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think Melbourne have such a proven track record now over the last few years. We've picked up so many gems. We've been so diligent with our work.
Where did Judd McVie come from?
Oh, I know. That was probably the one that I was thinking of right then and there.
What the hell?
Like him coming into the team and what he's been able to contribute in the first few rounds, and just knowing that regardless of whether it's Salem coming back in when he's fit later in the year, we've got a player there, like, ready, waiting in the wings. If Christian happens to get the nod and say, Judd McVie comes out of the team, that guy's going to push Salem to the nth degree for that position now. That's how well he started.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about him on the weekend when I was there watching, and I slapped my mate Rollo. He was feeling a bit sorry for himself, like you. I was surprised he actually got into the G. It was a big effort.
We've all been there, Rollo.
Mate, it was a big effort from Rollo. He'd been on a tear for 2 days. But he got there, and Judd McVie did a few crazy things where he just read the flight of the ball so brilliantly, and was mopping things up. He's the mopper-upper. He's the accountant. And
he's the janitor.
He's fantastic. And we just looked at each other and we just went, that's a footballer.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have big size, but what he has is ultra game intelligence in the same way that Jake Bowie, Lil Bow Wow, does. They just read the ball so well. They know exactly where to position their body, and that is a footballer, because the whole notion of the football is being taken out of football and it's all about athletes, it's all about endurance, it's all about running. Go and look at Chris Judd McVie and Lil Bow Wow. Seriously, because those two, number one, like, and Mark has spoken about this, Jake Bowie is so small and so cozy and so little and so cute, and we love him. But like he's
tough.
He is tough, but in theory, like he's got to do so many things well from a pure football perspective to have a place at the table to be an AFL footballer. I think in the same way that Judd McVie does, just purely because of his development and how young he is, and he needs to put on a bit of bulk at some point. And that's what I love about our recruiting staff.
Yep.
They're clever. They identify players that have natural talent and skill, as opposed to other clubs that have potentially gone down the athlete path. Stay in the football lane. Like, footballers like those two, they exude those qualities of stuff that is so hard to teach. And that's what I love about them. And it's a similar thing with Cozzy. Although Cozzy was a pick 12, and he clearly had oodles of talent, and you're right, the comparisons are weird. And I see a bit of tall poppy syndrome as well from people.
From the broader AFL community.
Well, it's more just the fact that we had Cyril.
Yep.
And people don't like the idea of a player that's only relatively in their infancy of their career being compared to someone that's actually gone and done it all.
Yeah, true.
They don't like that. They're like, well, hang on.
Yeah.
You know, this bloke did X, Y, and Z. This bloke's only done X.
Yeah.
So chill out.
Yeah.
But all we're saying is, as Melbourne supporters, is we believe the ceiling is that high, and it is that high.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's clear for all to see that that bloke can get to the very top of any accolade table, he can win premierships, he can win awards, he can do it all. And we can see that. And we're probably too close to it. But he's got to go and prove it. He's got to go and ensure that, he stays focused and he goes out there and he makes it count. But he is, like, I can't believe he's coming back into a team that has just beaten one of the contenders, and we're going over and playing an Eagles side that's going to probably have 6 or 7 changes. And then you're just rolling Cozzy Pickett back in. Like, I hope we brutalise the Eagles. We owe them we owe them a few shellackings.
I don't want to sound like Nuggets, but it could get to 120 points. Like, it literally could.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that sort of American sporting rant I went on. I think they call it drafting assets. So whether the player is an asset for your team or becomes an asset at the trade table, like drafting certain players and turning them into assets is what we've done really well. And yeah, Cozzy is an asset, hopefully, that can play for the Melbourne Football Club for 200 more games. But yeah, what he's doing is unreal. And we've had an amazing sort of small forward line that's all developed together. It's a shame that Toby Bedford sort of, went to GWS, but it does make sense because Kade Chandler, I think he's in the elite categories of like every sort of small forward KPI that there is in the first 3 rounds. And what I love is, like, for years and years, I was addicted to the draft, and I used to get excited. It was the Melbourne Football Club sort of grand final day was draft day, and I'd learn all these guys' names, and after a year, like, the rookies would sort of get flicked off, and maybe we'd see the high end draft picks play the first 40 games of their career and then just turn into something that, not quite developed the way we thought they would. And now it's sort of like we're drafting rookies that disappear for 3 years and then they pop up as ready-made footballers. And it started for me back when we drafted Jaden Hunt and James Harms. I remember for the first sort of 6 months to a year, I didn't bother learning their names because people like James Harms and Jaden Hunt, when they did get drafted in the 40s and 50s, and I think Harmsy might have been a rookie.
Yeah.
We just didn't get to know them, and they just got chewed up and spat out. And then they both got games like 2 years after they'd been on the list, and I'm like, I can't remember players being on our list for that long getting another gig. Normally that would sort of be like the death warrant of your career, not getting a gig for 3 years. And now, your Kade Chandler's, I know he did debut in 2019, but unsighted for sort of 3 years, and now he's a ready-made footballer, and we've got a culture of giving players 40 VFL games now, and they go and respect that. Like, and I think the development now is as important as it's ever been, and what we're doing with our development is world class.
I agree, and I think what we're doing down at Casey is as good as I've seen from any reserve VFL organisation. I'd probably say Geelong is still the best at it.
They are.
And
yeah.
there was an amazing stat that came out after their premiership last year, and I can't for the life of me remember it, because why would I want to remember a Geelong stat? But it was something along the lines of how many games of experience they offered to guys like Atkins, maybe a Myers, although I think he came in a bit earlier, so maybe that one's wrong. But it was a few of these players that had to bide their time.
Yeah.
And I think the median or average for the amount of players that had come into their premiership winning side from VFL level was about 50 or 60 odd games down at VFL, right? I think Melbourne have bought into that. Maybe Melbourne have gone and copied Geelong, and as much as we kind of loathe Geelong, we are bitter and a bit jealous of what they've set up down there, and they've done a fantastic job, 07, 09, 11 last year, winning that flag, which might end up being an incredible flag if they fall off a cliff, because then, they can attest to the fact that they
held on for that long.
Yeah, they got every inch out of themselves in 2022. I've got no issues if that's the case. If Melbourne went out and copied Geelong, so be it. And I think they absolutely have nailed it. Go and develop these players for long enough that they're hungry enough, but go and develop them physically and mentally to be able to prepare themselves for the rigours of AFL footy. We've had a history of playing players too early. Jack Watts is the greatest example of all time. When we brought him in, I was on the wing when he took that first possession and he got mauled by those 3 Collingwood dogs. And it annoyed me because we all wanted the best for Jack, and then I became a Jack Watts detractor. It's well known. He used to frustrate the living hell out of me. But you got to feel sorry for the guy, because the environment wasn't set up, and the environment wasn't set up from a reserve level point of view. And we could have done such a better job with guys like him. And Geelong have paved the way, and they've been a blueprint and an example for everyone else to go and follow. Go and see what they've done. I think I really do see Melbourne doing a lot of that. Goody admitted it. He said, mate, we held JVR back.
Yeah.
Of course we held him back. When Lockie Hunter's talking to us last week and he's explaining to us that this guy's an absolute freak and looks like he's got superstar qualities, and he asked Goody, how many games has he played?
Yeah.
Hasn't played a game yet.
Yeah, that's
He's
funny.
thinking, what are you doing? Play this kid. That just goes to show you that Melbourne have become so much more diligent in their approach of how you utilise your squad, and not forgetting how important that reserve team is in the way that it can leverage the senior team. And Kade Chandler, my God, I'm so glad you brought him up, because I've got a little note here in the run sheet around workmanlike players and the smaller brigade in our forward line. I've got Nibbler, Spargy, Chandler, and Cozzy to rotate through there, as we know he's going to play more midfield time. Such an important, underrated pillar of our side, those players. They were on fire last week. Those boys, when they're up and running, Cade's now in the mix. There's no way he's going out of that side anytime soon. He's an absolute lock and a gun. And I'm glad, because I was kind of pushing his case a lot last year to come into the team. So it's good to get one thing right. When they're on fire, Kados, it's like, I think it's easy to get hung up on how good our defence is, because it's very rock solid and we've got some stars down there. It's very easy to get hung up on the midfield brigade, because they're generational players as well. One of them could arguably be our greatest ever, or 2 of them, Max and Clay. And then Track might put himself in the conversation.
He's not far off Track
at some point as well. So it's easy to just get lost in that and get centric with defence and mid. But one thing I think that got us over the line in 2021 and helped us win that flag was the pressure on the ball in the forward 50, the inside 50 tackles, the smaller brigade, forcing turnover, kicking goals. Nibbler, Spargy, Chandler and Cozzy, for me, I genuinely do believe it's an oversight. If those guys end up performing in the way that they did last week, and they do it consistently throughout the rest of the year, that's going to be equally as important in my mind as it is with the defense functioning as well as it can, and the midfield doing its thing. Like, I honestly do believe that that's a underrated barometer for us. And I think it was on show last week, and it proved my point.
What I love is down at the Melbourne Football Club, and maybe every AFL team, but they don't call them small forwards and tall
Speed
forwards. It's speed forwards and power forwards.
Yes.
And I love that. Yeah, what those boys have been doing is unbelievable, and they're almost like I remember running around in the forward pocket many moons ago, and it was all about just kicking snags. But now
Did you snag a few?
not really. That's probably why I went to the back pocket after a little while. Swingman. With that smaller brigade, what I love about it is how defensive they are. Like, they're almost defenders. And some of like the goal-saving tackles or goal-saving smothers that you might see, it'll be like a Spargo in defence. It'll be a Neil Bullen at half-back, and it's just incredible. And no doubt you've got this written down, but Kade Chandler's work rate to get on the end of that goal when it was only 6 points, it comes rushing in. I think McVee sort of mops it up, gives one to maybe Brayshaw or Petrarca. We work it out through hands. Clayton Oliver gets it in the middle. I thought Neil Bullen was going to get decked. He gets his handball in the middle, turns around, gives it to Clary. Clary's got nothing forward, so he goes wide to Lockie Hunter.
Love it.
And then that shoe, like Kade Chandler started in the middle, ran to the SK Warren side, circles back around and works his ass off to get on the end of it. And it's one of those ones where it's like, we've taken the mark, everyone gets a breather, we set up in defence, set up behind the ball. So now, inevitably from that angle, it's a low percentage shot. When Kade Chandler misses, everyone's had a breather, we've now set up and we can lock the ball in our forward half and work towards getting another score. But he goes back after running that hard. His heart would have been exploding. He would have been puffing. He would have been fatigued. He steadies himself and he slots it to get us 12 points in front. Amazing kick of the footy.
Yeah.
That work rate from him was just ridiculous. And what I find funny as well is, like, I've got mates who don't watch a lot of Dees games, and they say, what's Charlie Spargo bringing? Is Lockie Hunter in your best 22?
Yeah.
We obviously, us Dees fans know that they are the connectors, and sort of Moneyball style, the Melbourne list management have gone perfectly and directly to Lockie Hunter for one role and one role only, and I think he's the best for inside 50 efficiency at the moment.
Yep.
Very Moneyball style, very clever, like targeting a player like that, you wouldn't even think of targeting a Lockie Hunter, sort of getting towards the twilight of his career. He's sort of given his all at the Dogs. He was good for a few years, but that was sort of 4 or 5 years ago. But to target him for one specific role, give him a task each game, and he's nailing it. And that kick to Kade Chandler sort of summed up his role in the team and Kade Chandler's role in the team.
Yeah, and you're spot on. Lockie Hunter's been exceptional. He's had a great start to his D's career, and those workmanlike players, Nibbler, Spargy, Chandler, all maligned at different times. People even before Chandler's getting a go are like, the kid will never make it. He's not up to it, blah, blah, blah. I've seen him at Casey. Nibbler and Spargy have copped their fair whack as well.
Yeah.
But they've all been brilliant, and they're all so critical. So I didn't mention it on Monday, and I really wanted to mention it today, just how proud I am of that group, because they're the ones that just... they have to work their asses off, and they have to get every inch out of themselves to just get a spot into the team. And then to see them impact the way that they have been has been really pleasing. So I just wanted to give them a pump up. Couple of other things. So Max Gawn, big Gawning, and I love this. I love this from Simon Goodwin. So it's one of the best things I've heard nearly all season long. So one of the worst things we heard, I'm going to preface it.
I think I know what you're going to say here.
Was when Max Gawn, he's gone down, he's injured. We see him in the change rooms. People are saying it could be a potential ACL. I'm like, that's one of the worst things I've ever heard. And then one of the best things I've ever heard is it's an MCL, and we're all jumping for joy. But Simon Goodwin today in his press conference spoke about how they're going to take a super conservative approach with Max Gawn. Last year, we all know this as Melbourne Nuffies. We rushed Max Gawn back in incredible time.
On multiple occasions, I reckon.
So quickly, got him back into the team. He went down to Geelong, your old stomping ground.
Yes.
And I think between him and Jackson, they had one mark on the night.
Yep.
And they got absolutely dominated aerially. And I was sitting with one of my best mates, Richie, and I said to Richie, I said, mate, what a farce this is.
Yeah.
Why are we bringing in one of the most valuable assets as quickly as we did? And we stuffed it. And we did that all season long when we played players who were clearly injured and we brought them back too early and we did not manage them correctly. And I'll say it again, Geelong, take a leaf out of their book, do what they did last year in terms of their management.
100%.
To hear those words today, there were all these other things that Simon Goodwin spoke about during the press conference, how he's confident because he's staying, which should probably be the best thing you've heard. Honestly, that was the takeaway for me. It was like, he's at least a month away. We're not going to rush him. And
even though he's I think what's great is even though he's running at the moment. So like, there's been a couple of MCLs recently where people have had quick turnarounds. I think Jack Viney came back in 2 weeks after he did his just before the season started. Hopefully not from doing backflips. He's a big backflipper at the moment. So
why did he do the backflip?
If you got it, flaunt it, I guess. Yeah, he came back really quickly, and then Tom Stewart did one, and he's come back within 2 weeks. So when you see footage of Max Gawn running a week afterwards, and he is notoriously a bit of a quick healer, like he did his syndesmosis last year, came back in 2 weeks to play Geelong.
Yeah.
He was really sore this time last year when we went over to West Coast, and that was like West Coast were bottom of the ladder, hadn't won for ages, and we all thought it's prime to sort of rest Gawney, rest a couple of players, and Goody came out in his press conference and he said, like, the philosophy from the football club was like, we don't want to jeopardize any game, or we don't see any game as easy, and we want to have like this elite performance mentality where we are our best every week.
Build momentum. Mate, we'd won 8 in a row.
yeah. 17 in a row at that point.
Yeah.
So at that stage in the year, it would have been a great time to give him a rest. So yeah, to hear that today was really it's sort of like they would. It's a great football club, but it's sort of like they have sort of looked at areas where they made mistakes last year.
Yeah.
One area was like playing players when they were injured. Another area was not rotating people through the list. Like, you need 30, 35 people to win a grand final, to win a flag. So I'm glad they've taken some of those learnings, and it was great to hear Goody say that.
I thought we were a stubborn club at one point last year.
I wonder why.
I was hypercritical of some of the decisions that the footy department staff were making when it was all unraveling, and we were all panicking a little bit because we want that flag at the G. And I started to question myself as a supporter and started to question the club. And I'm like, are the club actually going to review things in its totality and understand, like, we got it wrong?
Yeah.
And they're learning. And Goody's learning tactically, like playing Petty forward last week. That was a breath of fresh air as well, because we've long wondered, like, Goody's clearly a very good coach. There's no doubt. We've won a premiership underneath.
I ranked him high on my tier maker.
I know. I saw a shout out to the YouTube channel. So Kados has gone off and he's ranked all the coaches in the AFL system.
He's up there, Goody.
He's up there. So if you want to go and watch that on his YouTube, that went out this week, I think. Go and have a look at it. Good little plug there. But for me, I was a little bit despondent and skeptical as to whether Melbourne were going to change it up. We've learnt that when I saw Petty in the forward line.
How excited did you get? You went
people in the stands like looking at each other going, Petty forward, Petty forward.
Yeah.
It actually got like people up and about, and it got us thinking, okay, Melbourne have got a plan here. Melbourne have got a plan. And the beautiful thing about Petty forward, and I'll shout out to Adrian Franklin, who's a good friend and absolutely loves the pod, and he does great work in the media as well, just while we're at it. But Adrian said to me, the best thing about Harrison Petty, and I concur, he's got mongrel bastard.
He does.
He flies at it. He hits hard. But the thing I like about him, he's a bit of a prick.
Yeah.
So, like, there was an incident. I reckon he should have almost got a 50. I think McCartan outmarks him. He comes in late. He hits him. And when he's on the deck, he just, like, kind of gives him a little one.
Yeah.
That's what you want, though. Like, there's something to be said for inferred pressure. When you've got a bloke that's running around the forward line, he's pretty big man. He's 196, 197. He's well built. He's a country boy. So he's got a bit of you-know-what in him. And I like the fact that we've got a guy down there that's willing to throw his weight around.
Good size too.
Good size. In the way that maybe a Ben Brown, who's very much just a bit of a lead-up forward, sometimes needs it on a silver platter, can't do that. Tom MacDonald, yes, he can throw his weight around. He's good in a contest, but he doesn't have that mongrel bastard. Harrison Petty's got it, and he's one of the few players in our team, along with probably a Cozzy and a Jack Viney. Like, they've got it. Clarion Track have it as well, and so does Stephen May. I could keep reeling them off. But seeing someone forward of centre and someone tall that can bring that presence in the forward line, like he only had the 7 or 8 touches kick to goal, but it was more to do with his physical presence and his contest work, which makes me believe, I think you just continue to play him forward. If you end up kicking 134 points, and it's the best formula we've seen in a long, long time, why would we change it?
It was the best formula we've seen in ages. I can't remember seeing our forward line function that well in the tall forward department for a long time. Like, I remember when Harrison Petty went forward in 2019, and we just had nothing. Like, we just had to throw him in there. And he was clunking marks. It would have been the Bulldogs game at Marvel. I think we lost by 8 points. Really frustrating. It was a frustrating year where we lost a lot of games by 10 points in 2019. We weren't too far off, but we just kept getting pipped. And I remember Petty going forward that day, and his hands were unreal. So, to see him down there was super exciting. And I guess like a bonus is if someone goes down in the defence, he can swing back. But I think what I am most excited about is we've got options now. Like, I think there will be teams out there where Ben Brown and Tom MacDonald wax better against a certain lineup for whatever reason. And I think there are teams who might have like big, meaty interceptors that we do need to put a Petty and Van Rooyen onto. So I like that we've got options. I like that I don't know our best 22. I like that. I like that, hopefully this year, Joel Smith might come in and play like a weird role because we need him. Judd McVie might get moved around. Like, I like that there's options this season that we haven't seen for a long time.
The forward line options have come out of nowhere because I think we're all worried, we're all apprehensive about the tall forwards being our Achilles heel, and a lot of people have spoken about it. The media were onto it. I think us as supporters fed into it. I think it was definitely a thing. I think aerially forward of centre, we were getting dominated in a lot of games last year. All of a sudden, Jacob Van Rooyen looks brilliant. He looks at home. He's going to continue to play and develop and grow. He's going to have his off days. That's okay. But the kid's clearly got it. He's got that talent. It's on show. You can see it. He's well developed as a second-year player. Harrison Petty's proven that he can be a great option in the forward line. Ben Brown has wound the clock back. It's a shame that he's got his back complaint at the moment. But let's not forget, the guy kicked 8 goals in his first 2 rounds.
He hit the scoreboard on the weekend as well.
Yeah, and he hit the scoreboard. So he's got 9 in 3 rounds. Tom MacDonald's gone back at VFL level and done everything that he can. He might come into the team. The teams will be out shortly, and we'll read them out after a break. But he's another great, invaluable option to have. So we were sitting there going, what's our best mix? Our talls are going to absolutely kill us again. It's going to potentially cost us a flag. I think we're starting to realise we've actually got some tactical flexibility here, which we probably didn't even know we had. And it's because T-Mac, if he stays fit, we know he's had a lot of issues in recent times. Same with Ben Brown. He's had a lot of issues with that knee. If those two can just stay fit, then suddenly you've got 4 to pick from, and you've got 4 very different options as well. Like, they all bring something different. So suddenly you start to think, well, is that an embarrassment of riches with your tall forwards? And it could be.
Yeah.
And maybe we're clutching at straws and we're indulging a little bit too much. But Ben Brown, T-Mac stay fit. Suddenly I think it's a really, really great mix. And Simon Goodwin, I reckon, will be encouraged by that.
Yeah, for sure. I like that versatility. I like that we can throw something up to teams. Like, I want to be a team that is unpredictable and people won't know what they're going to get, but also be predictable. Like, we know we're going to get effort. We know we're going to get a standard of performance, but it could come in many shapes and sizes. So, yeah, I think for Melbourne fans, it hasn't felt like this for a while. Like we sort of got a formula and stuck with it for 18 months between 2021 and 2022. But now it's so exciting by how many options we do have. So yeah, it's exciting for the rest of the season.
Onwards and upwards. 3 players I just want to mention, or 4 players. I'm going to rattle through them and then we'll have a break and we'll go to the teams. But didn't mention him on the potty on Monday. Ed Langdon, much more like him last week. He was brilliant. 24 disposals, 2 goal assists, 9 score involvements. I think he kicked 3 behinds. He could have had a bit of a field day in front of goals as well, which was unlike us because we were pretty accurate. Jake Lever as well. We gave him a massive pump up in the first round, but I think it's more just his start to the season. So he's had the most intercept possessions of any player. I think he's 4 clear of the next best as well, which just shows you that he's back to that Jake Lever that we know and love, the 2021 version. He was absolutely brilliant. The other player that needs to be mentioned as well is Trent Rivers. So Trent Rivers is a man now.
Yeah.
So he's a big boy. He's a unit, and he hasn't received much praise yet, and he's probably flying under the radar. But Rivdog's been excellent, and there's a few stats I wanted to bring up. So he's been elite for intercept marks. He's averaging 2.3 at the moment a game. He's up to roughly 450 metres gained, and it's something noticeable that I've seen in his game is the way that he's just springing off half back and he's giving a bit of run and carry and he's getting the handball receives. That's probably a directive from the coaches, bring him into the game a little bit more. It's a lovely kick as well, just while we're at it. And listen to these numbers, Kados. He's had 24 disposals in round 1, 9 marks, 19 in round 2, 19 in round 3, and he had 3 and 7 marks respectively in rounds 2 and 3 as well. So the boy's going beautifully at the moment.
When I watched Trent Rivers get drafted and you watch the highlights, he was that sort of like that halfbacker that uses his foot skills and uses his run. So what I was really impressed with when he debuted was his intercepting and ability to sort of take a medium-sized forward and sort of play defensive. So we almost got the defensive Trent Rivers over the last few years who can intercept and play sort of like that third tall that gives Jake Lever a bit of a bit of access to be able to do his intercepting thing. So, to get Trent Rivers now, he at times he almost does that sort of Nick Dacos, like runs behind, gets the handball. It's definitely like a plan. Let's get it into Trent Rivers' hands. He's been awesome, but I love that he's in and around the midfield as well.
Yeah, no, he's been great. And a few people have mentioned it on the DeeBrief socials and messaging myself directly and just saying, don't forget Rivdog. Like Rivdog.
We love the Rivdog.
We love Rivdog. He's had a great start to the year. And then the last one before we go to a quick break is Bailey Fritsch. So Bailey Fritsch, we love Fritter. He's on a 31-game goal streak, his number, and Ron's. Famous number. 31-game goal streak, which is the longest streak of any current player in the comp.
Yep.
And let's not forget, and I'll keep bringing this stat up, he's the only player bar Tom Hawkins to kick as many goals as he has in the last 2 seasons as well. But this is his last 5 games. So he's kicked 3 against Sydney last week, 3 against Brisbane in his game back last week, 2 against Brisbane in the semi-final, 3 against Sydney in the qualifying final, and he was crooked that game, remember, from the warm-up, and 4 goals against Brisbane in that round 22 clash. The funny thing about the last 5 games as well that I'll point out, Sydney, Brisbane, Brisbane, Sydney, Brisbane. But he's on fire.
Yeah.
He's absolutely on fire. He's clinical and he's starting to get recognition. And I'll give a shout out to one of my good friends, David Cooper. He's a massive Geelong man. He lives in Geelong. And he said to me when we were at a Bucks party a couple of months ago, we're in the car heading out there, fresh at that time. And he said to me, he goes, do you know the one player that I reckon is just so difficult to match up on is Bailey Fritsch. He thinks he's one of the most slippery fish or fishes in the comp. And I agree. I think that's the beautiful thing about him is it's so goddamn hard if you're an opposition team to find the right matchup for him because he's just got that tactical nous of where to run to. Where's the space? And he was so clinical on the weekend. When he got that handball receive from Brodie Grundy, I've watched that one 20 times.
Wheeled around.
when he wheels around,
Yeah.
you're like, I'm almost in the stands with
Yep.
my mates pointing the finger.
Yeah, oh, it was similar.
I don't think he ever misses them.
No.
Like, ever. He's a gem, and he's starting from a competition-wide point of view, starting to get what I think he deserves. He deserves.
He should have
so
been
much
All-Australian
recognition.
the last 2 years.
Well, I think Heaney beat him to the spot last year, did he not?
Yeah, and then, I think it was Green the year before pipped him, but he had kicked more goals than both
And
of
more
them
goal
too.
assists, I
Yeah.
think. Last year, I think he was miles ahead of Heaney in goals and goal assists.
Mm.
Or there was another player that got picked on the half-forward line. I'm not going to bring it up, but I do feel like he's probably missed out on at least one All-Australian jacket.
I agree.
This could be his year, Kados.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's funny. He can kill you in the air. He's very good aerially, and then he can kill you on the ground. He reminds me of like an EPL striker. Like he just finds the back of the net every game, and he's found the balance. There was at times where so on the weekend where he kicked it over the shoulder, wheeled around. If he misses that, there was people streaming past, and you could say that was a selfish decision if he does miss it.
Don't bring that up again.
But I like that he takes it on it. Like he's in the side to do that.
Yeah.
I felt that there was certainly a bit of a time through last season where he didn't find the balance, but he's found the balance now. He brings his teammates into it when he has to. His skills are, unbelievable, and he definitely deserves an All-Australian jacket. There's not many people in the AFL that, perform the way that he does. It's sort of Jack Gunston-ish or Luke Brewsty.
Yep.
That's what we've got. But it's funny that you spoke about drafting footballers at the start of the show, and he was a kid from Casey or Coldstream or wherever it was. Like he was genuinely just playing some local footy, a little bit of Casey. Like he is that footballer's footballer,
Mate. Jason Taylor, Tim
Oh,
Lamb.
God.
Tim Lamb, Jason, we love you. They've done a
Unbelievable.
great job. But we'll go to a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the teams. We'll look at the decimated Eagles.
Wow, yeah.
They're going to have about 6 or 7 out of the side, and some very good players, some of their top brass. So it's a big opportunity for Melbourne. Hopefully put a bit of foot in the throat because, mate, the 2018 prelim, it still still lingers in the mind. I think we still owe them a few beatings. So we'll come back, we'll talk about that, and we'll wrap up. But, mate, that's a very fine first segment. Very good stuff. Liquorland are proud partners of the DeeBrief for another season of footy. Pop into your local Liquorland today or shop online to pick up all your favourites in time for the game. Would you like the chance to win a share of 20 million Flybuys points? To enter the draw, just spend $20 on liquor at your local Liquorland from March 1st until the 11th of April 2023. In-store or online, and don't forget to scan your Flybuys. Every $20 you spend will put you in the running to win one of 3,000 prizes. So get shopping and scanning today and land a share of 20 million Flybuy points with Liquorland. Liquorland, from the land you love. Please, as always, drink responsibly. Alrighty, back on the airways after a little break. And Kados, I've got a couple of stats here for you before we get to the team news.
Hit me.
Yeah, I'm going to hit you hard. So, goal kicking accuracy. There's a statistic that came out. I'm actually gonna put my hand up here. So there's this great page, My Heart Beats True. I think you may have seen it on.
I've seen it everywhere. I follow it on multiples forums and verticals.
It is a fantastic. It's better than it does some awesome content. It doesn't do this stupid opinionated riffraff that the DeeBrief does, which is me. I'm the admin, guys. But the particular person running it, who I've spoken to a little bit on Instagram, I just said to him, mate, you are doing a cracking job. And I've started to glean, so I'm crediting this account, I've started to glean a few stats off there. And the goal kicking accuracy statistic that was thrown up, and I think it was from someone else, but I
think it was from On the Couch.
Yeah. So anyway, whatever. We'll just credit it to My Heart Beats True. Melbourne going at 60.7% goal kicking accuracy. Essendon just behind on 55, the second best. And then it goes all the way through to Hawthorn on 34.3, which is hilarious. We love to see Hawthorn bottoming out at the moment. But we talk about it all the time. Taking your opportunities is so important. So just love seeing Melbourne up there in the goal kicking accuracy stakes. But this is the one that really got me from the week. So scores from defensive 50, always a hallmark of a strong team. Melbourne have a points differential of 37, which has them on top. Sydney plus 35, St Kilda plus 31, GWS plus 30, Collingwood plus 27, Brisbane plus 23, and then there's a massive drop-off to Richmond at plus 1. The reason why I wanted to go through all of them is I want to go straight to the bottom. Western Bulldogs have a 67 point differential between their for and against. They've only kicked 21 points from defensive 50, and they've got 88 points against when they're defending ball movement from defensive 50. The next best is Hawthorn at minus 29. So that is an incredible gap and just shows you how far off the Dogs probably were in round 1 and round 2 particularly. And maybe gives their supporters a little bit of hope after what they did last week against the Lions, which was a great performance. And Jamara Ugle-Hagan, and
Superstar.
that was just, I loved every single bit
it was
about
great.
that. That is footy. Loved everything about it. Loved him, making a stand for the mob. All that shit needs to stop just while we're at it.
100%.
Where are we going as a society? It's an absolute joke. So love that with every inch of my fibre. But Melbourne being up there in that statistic for me speaks volumes about the way that we've changed our game plan. So to score from defensive 50 is one thing, but also defending ball movement, which has always been a hallmark of this great Melbourne team in the last couple of years, that's still there. So only having 31 points against stacks up really nicely. Sydney are on 31 against, St Kilda 26, GWS 25, Collingwood 29, Brisbane, funnily enough, on 20, but they've only scored 43 from defensive transition. The game is all about transition now. It's how you defend ball movement. Melbourne are very good at that, but the one thing that we haven't been good at, particularly last season, was how we can start scoring and rebounding off halfback. To see that statistic was very encouraging this week. If that continues on that type of trajectory, I think it's pretty ominous for the rest of the comp because it's one part of our game that we're definitely off and we weren't at the races with it last year.
And I think you need to be good at both. Like, I think at the end of 2021, we were either 1 and 2 defensively and 1 and 2 offensively. So you need to be good at both. I think last year we were sort of second defensively and maybe... And it wasn't that huge of a drop off.
6 to 8,
6 to 8, yeah, sort of like that middle tier offensively. But, all Melbourne supporters would know that there was a clear differential between the 2021 side and the 2022, just given how they did stack up. So knowing that we've got those two parts of our game in order is very, very exciting. And something that got me super excited was listening to Goody today saying that we're miles off where we can get to. So he was talking about like offensively and defensively, and he was saying, look, it's round 3, like we've got a lot of work to do in those areas. I'm like, Goody, we're putting on clinics here, mate. Let's just, I don't know where we can get to, Goody, but geez, take me to the promised land.
Yeah, please, take us to the promised land. The promised land being a flag at the MCG, Simon. Team news, so it's come in, Keziah Pickett, of course, back into the 23, which is...
I could not tell you who goes out.
which is terribly exciting. Adam Tomlinson comes in. He was brilliant for Casey as well. He had a huge game. Luke Dunstan has come into the fold, and Tom MacDonald out at the moment. Just Ben Brown. They haven't risked him with that. With that injury, which is a good call. And I think we're learning. And he didn't look right. I saw some training vision today that was put up. He looked pretty ginger. What do we do? Does Tom MacDonald come back in? Is it just a straight swap, Cozzy in for Ben Brown? I don't know. I'm a little bit bamboozled by it. Do you change a winning formula? As we know, there's absolutely no way that a James Jordan, who was really impressive last week, comes out of the team. Guys like Kade Chandler, who's just spoken about, they don't come out of the team. Does Jake Melksham continue to be the super sub? Do we just continue to persist with that? Or does Tom MacDonald come in and it gives us that flexibility? Maybe he can be the sub.
I was thinking that.
And then it means that if a big, tall down back or down forward happens to go down, then Tom MacDonald could come into the side. So it's a tricky one, and it's a great problem to have.
Maybe we do go smaller, and instead of Melksham, maybe Tom MacDonald is the sub, and maybe if the smaller side isn't working, we do bring a tall in. I didn't really like the thought of Van Rooyen being in the ruck. I thought, geez, we've got this like natural full forward we haven't seen play before. I don't want sort of 20-30% of his game to be rucking when he's sort of outsized and out experienced. So maybe Tom MacDonald comes in so we look a little bit taller and he does the rucking and Van Rooyen just sort of stays forward. I like the Tomlinsons in the mix.
Yeah.
Maybe like we were sort of smaller defensively because Petty went forward, but we didn't bring a big defender in. So maybe Tomlinson takes Petty's role and Petty does stay forward this week. So maybe we just sort of bolster up the defence. I'm really not sure how selection will land. We find out it'll be tomorrow when we really find out the teams.
Yeah. So tomorrow at 5:00. It's not a. I mean, I'm pretty relaxed about it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
When you're bringing Cozzy Pickett back into the team, and noting something I'm just about to speak about is West Coast and their raft of injuries as well. It's a strange.
Who's out for them?
Strange game. Well, here we go. So we got Alex Witherden, who's out. Campbell Chesser is injured.
I'm pretty sure he played out the game.
Yeah, well, he's out. And then we've got Dom Sheed, who's injured. Every single one of these players is injured.
Yeah.
So Jamie Cripps, Jeremy McGovern, Liam Ryan,
Jesus,
and Luke Shuey. So Sheed, McGovern, Ryan, Shuey, you'd categorise in their top 6 or 7 players, potentially?
For us, that's like Cozzy, Stephen May, Clary, and whoever else. That's how important these people are to the West Coast team.
100%. And then they've got Brady. I could get these names wrong, but we've got Brady Hoy or Hoy Who. It's Horton without the T-O-N. And then we've got Connor West, Elliot Yeo, who's obviously a very classy player, so that's a nice in for them. Greg Clark, on you Greggy. Don't know who he is. Jack Petricelli's in. It was pretty funny when Frosty took his shirt off. Took your shirt off, your pal. Jay Cully is in.
I like Jai Cully.
Jai Cully, sorry.
He's got dreadies.
Don't know who you are, mate. Josh Rotham's in. Luke Edwards, Luke Foley, and Xavier O'Neill. I've seen a few of those boys play, but
I haven't heard of any of those blokes, to be honest.
Except for Elliot Yeo. They're bringing in a lot of mid-tier, top, like almost top-up type fringe players and losing some significant experience, some leadership as well.
It's brutal.
It's a huge chance, a huge opportunity to bury the West Coast Eagles. And the reason I want us to bury the West Coast Eagles is because 1994... it sticks in the minds of a lot of the older generation of Melbourne fans, particularly my old man.
It's a year before I was born.
Well, I was 5. I was 5 at the time, so I can't remember the game. But the prelim over in the West was apparently pretty brutal. It was a year, Kados, where a lot of old Dees fans thought that it was a missed opportunity for us to go on and win a premiership. We had a star-studded lineup. Unfortunately, throughout the year, we were a bit curtailed by injury and it didn't happen. So I think a lot of Melbourne supporters still want to see us go out there and owe them a beating for that one. And then, of course, the 2018 prelim, which I've spoken about, and I'm not going to bring it up again. That's it. I'm done. It still hurts. And just the sheer fact that when they were a powerhouse club, very consistent, very reminiscent of the way that Sydney are still going about it, still competing for flags and always up there. Man, they used to just beat up on us. And just bash us and just pity us. And there's a number of teams in the AFL that I still have a chip on my shoulder about. West Coast are one of them. They actually are. Like, I've sat through so many games watching them just do their thing against us.
Yep.
In the same way that I have with Sydney, which was great last week to get the win over them, in the same way that I have against the likes of a Hawthorn. West Coast they're in the same bracket. So I want a big shellacking. I want us to put the foot down. We've always had a bit of an issue with playing teams that have been crooked by injury. We seem to just go through the motion a little bit. Haven't brought our best. It happened last year when we played the Eagles. We eventually broke them late.
Yeah, there was only sort of like 25 points throughout the whole game. It weirdly got to 70, which was the biggest margin we've ever won against West Coast over there.
In the West, yeah.
It'll be bigger than that this year.
I think so. And then I think it was the week before or the week after against North Melbourne, we were toiling with them until the end of the third, start of the fourth, and then we broke it open late.
We weren't playing good footy at the start of last year.
No. Can we get a bit of foot on the throat this week?
Well, I think...
Would like to see it.
I think that's what we'll have this year that we haven't had before. I think our best has gone past the sort of bottom 6 best. Like, sort of... I think there's a bit of a gap between us and them. I know the competition's so even, and if you're 5% off and they're 5% on, it can swing a game. I think Melbourne this year are at a level where that won't happen. And I think we're going to flatten some teams this year. I think we'll see some big performances because even when we won the premiership, I know we beat Gold Coast by 100, but that was the only real, like, full-on absolute flogging that we gave. I think this year we're going to see a lot, like, sort of 2 or 3 big results for the footy team, and I think one will come this weekend.
Nice. Okay, well, we may as well wrap up there with some predicos. What are we going? What are we thinking? What in the vicinity? I have a good feeling, and shout out to Jaden Hunt.
He's been good as
quietly.
well.
I love Jaden Hunt.
Same, yeah.
Love him. Love that he's wearing the number 5. It's a very iconic footy number, of course. And it seems like he's well loved over there.
Yep.
I've jumped on Twitter and I searched Jaden Hunt to get the fan sentiment and see what they were saying about him. They really like him, and we love you, Jaden. So it is going to be a bit weird watching him.
It'll be wrong. It'll feel so wrong.
It'll feel weird. It'll feel wrong. And no doubt it'll feel a little bit weird and wrong for him. And I hope he gets embraced by all the boys, and he will. He's a lovely fella, great character, good servant of ours. So I just wanted to point out I'm looking forward to seeing Jaden. But Jaden, you're going to get mauled, mate. I'm thinking somewhere in the vicinity of a commanding, honestly, foot on the throat, 80 plus.
Yep.
I want to see a really ruthless Melbourne team that starts to send shockwaves through the rest of the competition. You can do that by beating up on teams, and I'm really hoping that happens this week. And I needed to channel a bit of Adzi because he's not here.
Yeah.
Because I think his average winning margin for his predictions is anywhere in the realm of 90 plus. So I've gone for 80 plus.
So, yeah, no, I think that's a good call. I think what'll happen is we'll do the damage early. I think it'll be about 60 at half time, and I think we'll sort of slow down in the second half. I think we'll win by just under 100. I'm going to say it's like 92 points. Because I think we've been talking ruthlessness for years. We've been talking about never taking any team lightly for years, but I don't think we've had the forward caliber that we've got now to do that. So I think it's like we've got this maturity where, you know, Clayton Oliver isn't 22, 23 anymore, and we're trying to beat teams. It's like he thinks he owns Optus Stadium. Petrarca thinks he owns Optus Stadium. I think we've got this confidence and this brutality and this ruthlessness that will bring us this sort of results. And I remember for years our percentage was always quite average. You know, mid 2000s, mid 2010s, we'd sort of be 70%. Then the next year it was 90%, then 110. And the last few years we've lived in that 130. I'd love to finish off it a little bit bigger, like not live in the 120% where you're sort of around other teams in the top 4. I want to get to that 135, that 140. And I think this weekend's a game where we just got to bank some percentage. And I'm not someone who is very cocky at all, and I don't like to disrespect other teams, so I hope it doesn't come across disrespectful to the West Coast fans that are listening to the DeeBrief on a Friday morning, but I do think this is a statement game. This is the ruthlessness, this is the confidence that has been building for years, and I think we see a pretty complete performance.
I like it. I'm going to put a disclaimer on it as well. If Melbourne end up just getting the job done and it's professional and it's 3, 4, 5 goals, like whatever, just go and get the 4 points. But I do see it as a big opportunity. You could go through and say Tom Barrass, Shannon Hearn, Elliot Yeo, Andrew Gaff, Jack Darling, Oscar Allen, of course, a very good player, Tim Kelly. You could go through and you could rattle off a few names and go, oh, hang on.
Yeah.
There's some There's some genuine...
And it is over in the West.
There's some genuine quality there. But at the same token, you roll through the two teams on paper and go 23 versus 23. There's a massive golfing class for me.
Yeah, they only bat sort of 7 or 8 deep.
Yeah.
When we bat probably 16 deep. So
correct.
Talking about that end-to-end transition, like this is this is like a struggling West Coast side. This team is like bordering on just throwing the baby out with the bathwater and going, let's just play the WA, like the Waffle Kids. Like they're almost sort of about to retire all their premiership heroes. They're on the brink of like the rebuild, and I feel like a game like this might make them sort of flick the switch from like, are we? Yeah, all right, we'll go the rebuild.
Send them to the rebuild.
Yeah.
Love that. That's
if we get done, I'll never come on this podcast ever again. I will never be able to show my face in AFL media. But that's just the feeling that you've got going into this game.
That's the title of the pod. Send them to the rebuild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're on the brink, and it's about 6 JVR goals away from happening.
Some of them claim that in 2019, the reason why we were so shit is because they sent us into an abyss after the 18 prelim. So, if you think that way, we're going to send you into the rebuild. That's what we're going to do.
I think... I want to see, I do want to see this ruthlessness. And I feel like we've got this confidence, and it's not the confidence off last weekend, it's the confidence from the last 3 or 4 years. These boys have, I don't think it took much to give Clary and Track confidence to be out on an AFL ground, but they now know what they can do, and that ferociousness offensively, I think will... Yeah, send him to the rebuild.
We're gonna send you.
Sorry, Hunty.
Send you to the rebuild.
You've been there before, son.
Yeah, that's all right. He's experienced a rebuild. Well, Kados, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved every minute of it. It's been brilliant. Hopefully, all of what we were just saying then doesn't blow up in our face. But we'll see. But mate, you're doing a wonderful job. I know you've worked very hard in your craft as well, and you're starting to reap the benefits of it. Just keep cracking away, keep plugging away. You're doing an awesome job, and I know a lot of people get a huge kick out of your content on your YouTube channel and the podcast that you've been doing, and just keep doing what you're doing because I love it, and it's all about persistence. And at the end of the day, you're a Dees nuffie at heart, so I'm sure the DeeBrief community will have loved listening to you on the show tonight, as I have. And as I said, mate, hopefully everything that we just said then doesn't make us look like fools on Monday morning.
I'm confident it won't. But I really appreciate those words, and thanks for getting me on. And I've been listening to this, weekly, so I'm a bit gutted that I won't be able to listen to this week's episode because I don't want to listen to myself for an hour. But big D's win on a Sunday night. There's nothing better than, a Thursday night win's good. A Sunday night's almost better. A Sunday night win's almost better. And, can't wait to see what the boys do over the weekend.
No, I love it, mate. And, big shout out to all the premium subscribers, of course. All your hard-earned goes into this shiny studio. Derek in the background plugging away. A little bit annoyed with you, Derek. So I tried to cue Derek up. I can't even speak. It's the end of the show. The Sash podcast, who record here on a Monday. We're doing a somber therapy podcast because, of course, they lost to Derek's beloved Saners, who are flying.
They are flying, the Saners.
They're on top of the ladder. And I'd called Derek up, and it was about a different matter, actually. And I said to him, mate, Rob's coming in. He's doing the Sash. Play the St Kilda theme song. And he didn't. And he missed a huge opportunity during the Sash podcast on Monday. So if that ever happens again... Please, but if you play the freaking theme song against us, if you beat us this year, I'll lynch you. But no, thank you, Derek, for all your efforts. But honestly, thanks to all the premium subscribers. All of that money goes back into this product, allows us to be here, allows the DeeBrief to continue on its own very journey. And I'm a bit nuffied up tonight. I've got the DeeBrief beanie on, the merch on. So... As I've said to you before, if you want to buy a DeeBrief beanie or a DeeBrief scarf, you head over to the store. It's in all the links. It's in the links on the Instagram bio. You can't miss it. Again, all those contributions go into running the show. I'm going to leave it there. That's enough of a plug. Go Dees, get it done. Big win. Send them into the rebuild. Liquorland are proud partners of the DeeBrief for another season of footy. Pop into your local Liquorland today or shop online to pick up all your favourites in time for the game. Would you like the chance to win a share of 20 million Flybuys points? To enter the draw, just spend $20 on liquor at your local Liquorland from March 1st until the 11th of April 2023. In-store or online, and don't forget to scan your Flybuys. Every $20 you spend will put you in the running to win one of 3,000 prizes. So get shopping and scanning today and land a share of 20 million Flybuy points with Liquorland. Liquorland, from the land you love. Please, as always, drink responsibly.